Where I want to start this episode with arguably a top 5 fighter I've ever seen in my life in Terrence Crawford. We had incredible college football games this weekend. We had incredible NFL games this weekend. But the marquee event this weekend in sports was Terrence Crawford going up against Canelo Alvarez. You had one fighter that was going in was 41-0, Terrence Crawford. You had another fighter that was going in that was 63-1-1 or 1-2. And that was the marquee matchup. Again, we had Super Bowl rematches. We had Ravens versus Browns. We had WNBA playoffs starting. We had great college football games. But the marquee event was Terrence Crawford going up against Canelo Alvarez. Now, why did I start my episode with saying I'm right about this is the golden age of sports? Terrence Crawford is the best fighter of this generation. That has been his greatest strength and his greatest weakness. Terrence Crawford, in my opinion, will go down as a top 5 boxer I've ever seen in my life. Now, I'm not the biggest boxing, history buff. But I've watched a lot of boxing in my years, and I have not seen 5 boxers greater than Terrence Crawford. And what was funny about this fight going into it was, and this is also why I said that Terrence Crawford's greatness is his biggest weakness and his biggest strength, because when you get to as great as he has been, it's hard to find opponents that want to step inside the ring with someone as great as Terrence Crawford. I don't remember who it was, but they were talking about, I think they were talking to Shannon Sharp and Club Shay Shay. They were talking about the state of boxing and how Floyd Mayweather essentially ruined boxing. And to a certain point, or to a certain standard, I agree. That O in the loss column means so much to people, and rightfully so. I think Floyd Mayweather emphasizing that O in his career made it to the point where that's almost the only thing that matters to fighters. And I also get it because it's different how we talk about fighters that have an O in that loss column compared to fighters that have a 1 or a 2 in that loss column. But I believe Floyd Mayweather made it almost impossible to look at a fighter that has 1, 2, or 3 losses ever or the same as a fighter that has no losses but less wins. Floyd Mayweather made that O extremely important in the loss column. That was his thing. That's his legacy. That's one of the reasons why he considers himself, and a lot of people consider him, the greatest fighter of all time because of that O in the loss column. And understandably so. I think Floyd Mayweather is one of the greatest fighters ever, especially when we talk about his elusiveness in punches. So when we talk about Terrence Crawford, it's hard to find somebody, bruh, he's 42-0 at this point. It's hard to find somebody that is willing to step in the ring because you're essentially the underdog, except for this fight when Canelo was the favorite, and we'll talk about that in a second. That's one of the biggest reasons why it was such a big fight with Earl Spence going up against Terrence Crawford, because it's just so hard to find a top tier matchup like that. Now, yeah, I know Earl Spence went through the car accident and the eye injuries and everything, but that was a marquee fight at the time. But going into this fight, almost everything was going up against Terrence Crawford. You're going up a weight class. Like, I think he went from like 147 to 168. That's 21 pounds. 20 plus pounds is a humongous difference when we talk about the fighting world. It's humongous difference anywhere, but when we talk about the boxing world, it is extremely. It's Grand Canyon size. You're going up against, I would say, the face of boxing. And I'm not saying that Canelo Alvarez is the best boxer, but the face of boxing is probably Canelo. When you think of boxing, it's very hard to think of stars. There's not many stars, let alone many stars bigger than Canelo right now. And going into the fight, he had 63 wins. But you're going up against Canelo, and I think this is one of the first times where Terrence Crawford went up that much in weight. But this is the fight that he wanted. This is the fight that they both wanted. And Terrence Crawford essentially dog walked Canelo that entire fight. I think if you want to be nice, if you want to be generous, I'll give Canelo 2 rounds. Maybe the first 2, or maybe the first and the third. I give Canelo 2 rounds. But that was it. Yo, Crawford put on a masterclass on how to deliver punches, how to take punches, how to, he's such a technician in the ring. The biggest compliment that I can give Crawford for that fight was he made Canelo almost look like an amateur. And I think that's why. That right there is the biggest reason why. And what solidified to me that Terrence Crawford is arguably I can't name 5 fighters better than him. Because you went up to Canelo. You went up to Canelo's weight class. You didn't have a rematch clause. You didn't have a dehydration clause. You didn't do all the bells and whistles that would be in favor of Canelo and would be actually in favor of you. He didn't. He did everything that a underdog is supposed to do. And when it came time to fight, he looked like the superior fighter. And we're not talking about no slouch. We're talking about Canelo. Again, he has 63 wins and only 2 losses now and 2 draws. Crawford also became the first 3-division undisputed boxing champion of the 4-belt era. So you have the accolades, you have the milestones, you have the wins, you have that 0 that Floyd Mayweather made so popular. I think the question is, and I think what's difficult is what's next. I think Crawford is 37, 38 years old, one of those two, and you reached the mountaintop. You beat the face of boxing. You beat the person essentially in his prime that a lot of people said that you couldn't beat. And that's one thing I love about both Crawford and Canelo. they've never really ran from a fight. They've never ran from a big fight. The issue has been, at least for Crawford, is the other opponent hasn't really wanted to fight them. But I don't know where he goes from here. And like that's why I said his greatness is sort of a blessing and a curse. I don't know where he goes from here. You've beaten everybody in front of you. You've beaten the face of boxing. I've essentially, again, the first 3-division undisputed champion. What is there left to gain? Who else is there? You could go down and fight someone like a Boots Ennis. You could go down and fight someone like a Gervonta Davis, but do you want to continue to fluctuate your weight like that? And on top of that, why would you do that? As great as Boot Ennis is, as great as Gervonta Davis is, Terrence Crawford is the draw. So they would have to be the ones to come up to his weight. And I think, and side note, shout out to Netflix. It was a flawless stream, flawless night. It definitely learned from its mistakes with the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight. It was, shout out to Max Kellerman. I don't remember who the other commentator was, but it was just a seamless stream, seamless event. It was great. Netflix really did their thing. The picture was good. It was good. Everything about it was A tier. But I don't know where I don't know where Terrence Crawford goes from here, which is why I think his next move might be retirement. And he even said he's going to talk to his team. He's 37, 38 years old. He's almost 40. Not saying that obviously he's still at the prime of his powers, the way that he beat Canelo. But again, who is there else left to fight? I don't know. And shout out to Canelo too. Canelo, I know that he's the one that lost, but there were times like this fight doesn't take away from his legacy. It's just, it was clear that you're fighting a different caliber of fighter. And that's no offense to Canelo. That's all praise to Terrence Crawford, the Omaha legend. This was an extremely good fight. This was a entertaining fight. And kudos to both Terrence Crawford and Canelo for putting on an absolute show. And like I said at the start of this is the golden age of sports, because there's no one that has any sweat equity in the boxing world, anyone that watches boxing regularly, anyone that cares about boxing. There's no way that you can look at Terrence Crawford, look at what happened against Canelo, look at what's happened in his career. There's no way that you can look at that and think to yourself, I can name 10 or 5 boxers better. He is a top 5 boxer of all time, in my opinion. And while I already had that assumption going into this fight, the results of this fight just put a bow on it. Congratulations, Terrence Crawford, for again becoming the first 3-division undisputed boxing champion. And shout out for if this is the last fight, I'm not saying it is, shout out to a very successful career. Oh, man, you stayed to the end of the video. I appreciate you. If you like what you saw, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss any content from your boy. You can also go back and watch past episodes, past clips, and don't forget that the Unpopular Podcast, new episodes drop every Wednesday and Saturday. Appreciate you.